The room went silent after the slap. Then she clapped. Once. Twice. Slowly. Mocking. And they laughed. Her friends, our friends, people I barely knew but had fed, toasted with, hugged at our wedding. I stood there, one cheek burning, not from her hand, but from the humiliation. My birthday cake sat untouched behind me, candles still flickering in that strange, indecisive way, like even the fire didn't know if it should keep burning. "Happy birthday, Elian," Leona said, her voice slicing through the air like a champagne cork. "Now everyone knows." She tossed the envelope on the table like it was part of the decoration. I didn't even look. I didn't have to. I already knew what was inside. She'd printed screenshots. The room swelled with whispers. Someone gasped. Someone laughed. I couldn't tell if it was real or imagined. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. And that's when it hit me. She wanted this. She planned this. She wore that emerald dress like armor. She invited him. She told them. This wasn't a breakdown. This was an execution. But that's not even the part that broke me. The part that broke me came hours later, when the guests were gone. The wine was warm, and she knocked on the bathroom door where I was hiding. And through the wood, barely a whisper. I didn't mean it. "Please don't go." I didn't respond. Not right away. Not to her whisper. Not to the knock that followed. Not to the way she let her forehead rest against the door like we were still close, like we were still on the same side of something. Because we weren't. That was the thing. She'd drawn a line I didn't know existed until she shoved me over it in front of everyone. She sat outside that door for maybe 10 minutes. Maybe an hour. I didn't check. I sat on the floor of the bathroom, knees pulled to my chest like I was 13 again, like hiding from my parents' fights would make them less real. I stared at the single toothbrush in the cup by the sink. Mine. Hers was missing. Of course it was. Of course it had already started. "I wasn't trying to humiliate you," she said eventually, her voice barely audible through the crack at the bottom of the door. "You just—" I didn't know what else to do. I almost laughed, but it came out like a cough. My throat was dry, my head pounding. There was still frosting under my fingernails from when I sliced the cake. No one had eaten it. She'd slapped me before we even lit the candles. Right in front of her new friends. I think one of them recorded it. I saw someone lower their phone when I turned away. The envelope still sat on the coffee table, untouched. I hadn't even opened it. But I didn't need to. I knew what was inside. Texts, probably. Photos. Maybe a receipt for a hotel. I'd felt the shift weeks ago, maybe months. But I'd ignored it. Smothered it with routine. With maybe I'm just being paranoid. With she's just been tired lately. Like a fool. And then I said something. Finally. Quiet. Cowardly. Why him? I didn't even know I was going to ask it until it came out. There was silence for a moment. Then her voice, soft, cracked, not angry anymore. Just tired. "I don't know." He listened, maybe. He looked at me like I was still someone. And I was angry. At you. At everything. I wanted you to notice me. I stood up slowly, knees stiff. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. Hair messy, eyes red, party shirt wrinkled and buttoned wrong. I looked like someone who didn't even have the strength to fight back. "Then why beg me to stay?" I asked, pressing my hand against the door, like I was trying to feel if she was still there. She didn't answer for a long time. And just when I thought she'd walked away, I heard it. A breath. Then a sentence that didn't sound like her at all. "Because when you looked humiliated tonight, I realized I still cared." And just like that, I felt the second crack. The first was betrayal. This one was confusion. Because part of me, the weakest, most pathetic part, wanted to believe her. By the time I opened the door, she was gone. Not gone as in left the apartment, just gone from that spot. No more whispering through the wood. No more soft apologies curled up like snakes at my feet. Just silence. I stepped out cautiously, like the hallway was a battlefield and I'd forgotten who the enemy was. The apartment was wrecked, not from the party, but from the aftermath. Someone had spilled red wine across the rug. Plastic cups littered the floor. Someone left a single high heel by the couch. And there it was, the envelope. Still untouched. Still sitting dead center on the coffee table like a dare. I sat on the edge of the couch and stared at it. I told myself I wasn't going to open it. That I didn't need to. That I didn't want the images burned into my brain. But then I reached for it anyway, like my hand had its own agenda. Inside, screenshots. Printed text messages. A few blurry selfies. A hotel keycard taped to a receipt. All dated. All real. She'd been seeing him for months. Not just him, either. His name was in the texts, Stefan. Who the hell even has a name like Stefan anymore? He signed one of the messages with it. Like he thought he was writing love letters in 1892. Idiot. But that wasn't the part that gutted me. The part that gutted me was a message from Leona, time-stamped exactly 2 hours before the party started. He won't see it coming. I'm just tired of pretending. It's time. That was her plan. That's what she meant by everyone knowing. It wasn't just a spontaneous slap or some wine-fueled drama. It was a decision. A scheduled detonation. I was the last to find out, and it was my name on the damn balloons. I don't remember standing. I don't remember walking to the bedroom. But I remember opening the drawer where I kept all the cards she'd written me over the years. Anniversary notes. Dumb little post-its. That one time she left a list of reasons she loved me inside my lunch bag. I'd kept all of them. I tore them to pieces. I wanted it to feel good. It didn't. It felt like throwing rocks at a ghost. And then she came back into the room. Quiet. Slow. Like she knew better than to speak first. She leaned against the doorframe, eyes red but not crying anymore. Arms crossed like a kid caught stealing, not like a woman who'd just set her marriage on fire in front of 20 people. You read it? She asked softly. I nodded, jaw clenched. Then I don't need to explain. But you will. I snapped before I could stop myself. My voice cracked. I sounded pathetic. I hated it. She looked down, then up, then finally said something that I still don't fully understand. I thought if I burned it all down in one night, maybe I wouldn't miss it. And for a terrifying moment, I realized she meant me. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't call her names, even though a dozen of them clawed at the back of my throat. I just stood there, staring at her, wondering how long she'd been gone. Emotionally, physically, mentally. Because this version of her wasn't the woman I married. This version of her had rehearsed her betrayal like a performance and picked my birthday for the grand finale. I pointed to the door. Just go, I said, and even I could hear how weak it sounded. Like I wasn't kicking her out, more like begging her to disappear before I shattered completely. She didn't move. Instead, she walked to the armchair, the one I always sat in, the one with the busted armrest and permanent dent from my weight, and folded herself into it like she still had the right. You don't get to do that, she said. You don't get to pretend you were this perfect husband. That one sentence nearly made me lose it. Perfect. I laughed bitterly. You're right. I wasn't perfect. I worked too much. I got quiet when I was stressed. I forgot anniversaries sometimes. But I never cheated. I never humiliated you. I never made you feel like a stranger in your own home. She blinked. Her eyes were glossy again, but no tears fell. She always controlled her crying, weaponized it, even. I used to think it meant she was strong. Now I wasn't so sure. You made me invisible, she said, her voice low. You were here, but not here. You stopped looking at me. You stopped seeing me. And that's why you slept with Stefan? I meant it as a knife. But she didn't flinch. No, she said calmly. I slept with Stefan because I was angry, and because he made it easy, and because I thought you'd already given up on me. There it was again, that thing she did, where she made me question my reality. Gaslighting 101, but so subtle, so smooth, it made me hesitate. Had I really checked out? Had I been cold? Had I abandoned her emotionally long before she betrayed me physically? But then I remembered the message. The one she sent him before the party. He won't see it coming. That wasn't pain. That was cruelty. That was choice. I didn't give up on you, I whispered. You gave up on us. And then you turned it into a show. For a moment, we both just sat in silence. Her in my chair, me standing like I was about to fall through the floor. The envelope still lay open on the table like it hadn't finished screaming yet. And then, out of nowhere, she asked, "Do you still love me?" That question hit harder than any slap. Because the answer wasn't simple. Because even after all of this, a piece of me still did. A stupid, broken, bleeding piece. And I hated that piece with everything I had. So I told her the truth. I don't know. She closed her eyes, exhaled, and then said something I'll never forget. Then we're not done yet. And she meant it. She didn't leave. I went to bed with the intention of locking the door, of drawing some kind of boundary, of at least pretending I still had control over the collapse of my own life. But when I got there, the lock was broken. It had been for months. I always meant to fix it. I shut the door anyway and crawled under the covers like the blankets could somehow insulate me from everything that had just happened. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, eyes wide open in the dark. I could still hear the ticking of the kitchen clock, the buzz of the broken fridge light, the soft creak of the floorboards outside the room. And then her footsteps. Slow, hesitant. She didn't knock. She just opened the door and stood there in the dim hallway light, holding something in her hands. One of my shirts. The old navy blue one with the frayed collar she used to steal on cold mornings. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I expected her to say something, to ask for forgiveness, to make some plea, some desperate justification. But she didn't. She just walked in quietly, pulled the blanket back like it was still her right, and slipped under it beside me like nothing was broken. I should have told her to get out. I should have pushed her off the bed, grabbed my keys, walked into the night. But instead, I lay there, stiff, silent, stunned. Every part of me screamed for action, for dignity, for something. But I did nothing. She didn't try to touch me. She just curled up beside me in my shirt, facing the other way, like a ghost pretending to be human. And I lay there, staring into the darkness, wondering what kind of man lets his wife climb into bed with him the same night she confessed to planning his public humiliation. At some point, I fell asleep. Or maybe I just passed out from emotional exhaustion. I dreamt that the apartment was flooding, water rising from the floor, and I was paralyzed, unable to move, unable to swim, just floating there as my lungs filled. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. Light seeped in through the blinds. My side of the bed was cold. She was already up. For a second, one awful, traitorous second, I panicked that she'd left for good, that she'd vanished into the morning and taken the last word with her, that I'd never get closure. But then I heard the sound of a mug clink against the counter. She was in the kitchen, making coffee, like it was just another Tuesday. I walked out and saw her standing there barefoot, wearing my shirt, sipping from the mug that said #OneHusband. She didn't look at me, just took another sip and said, flatly, "We need to talk." And maybe it was the sleep deprivation or the fact that part of me still remembered the version of her that danced barefoot in the rain 2 summers ago. But I sat down at the table like a fool and said, "Then talk." But I wasn't ready for what she said next. Not even close. She didn't hesitate. As soon as I sat down, she launched into it. No warning. No build-up. Like she'd rehearsed every word overnight while I lay awake beside her pretending to be asleep. I didn't plan to cheat. That part just happened. The rest, the party, the slap, the envelope, that was planned. But not for revenge. Not even to hurt you. I just wanted it to be over. All at once. Clean. I said nothing. I just stared at the mug in my hands. It was hers, the chipped one with the tiny cactus on it. I hated that mug. I always had. But that morning, I gripped it like it was the last solid thing in my life. "You think I'm a monster," she said. "But you weren't there. You weren't present. I was married to a ghost, alien." I snapped my eyes to hers. "Don't you dare make this about me." "I'm not," she said quickly. "I swear I'm not. I just need you to hear it. You think I destroyed everything out of nowhere. But I was alone in this marriage for 2 years before I ever touched anyone else. 2 years. She said it like it was a fact. Like I had abandoned her long before Stefan ever existed. And the worst part? A part of me wondered if she was right. I wasn't affectionate anymore. I didn't initiate things. I stayed late at work, even when I didn't have to. I filled silences with noise, TV, headphones, podcasts, anything to avoid hearing my own thoughts or hers. I convinced myself we were just going through a phase, and that phase is past if you ignored them long enough. But cheating? Public humiliation? That wasn't a cry for help. That was surgery without anesthesia. She could have left. She could have said, "I want out." But instead, she waited until I was surrounded by friends and a cake and hope, and then she detonated everything. I took a breath and finally asked the question that had been clawing at me since the moment she kissed that man in front of me. "Do you love him?" Her face twitched. "Just once. But it was enough." "No," she said. "I never did. It wasn't love. It was distraction. It was feeling wanted again. It was someone looking at me like I wasn't a burden." "But you planned to leave me for him, didn't you?" I pushed. Silence. Then, quietly, "No. I planned to leave you for me. I didn't want to be anyone's wife anymore. Not yours. Not his." That sentence broke something in me. Not because of the rejection. I was already numb to that. But because it sounded so final. Like she'd already mourned the relationship. Like she'd already moved on. And I was just a leftover obligation she hadn't cleared from the fridge yet. So why are you still here? I asked, every word soaked in disbelief. Why sleep beside me? Why wear my shirt? Why make coffee like we're still married? She looked up at me then, really looked. Her eyes weren't cold. They weren't warm either. They were just tired. Bone-deep tired. Like she was more lost than cruel. Because after everything, I don't know who I am without you. And I didn't know what scared me more, the fact that she meant it, or the fact that I understood it. She said she didn't know who she was without me. And I should have laughed, or gotten up and walked out, or told her I was finally done playing therapist to someone who'd carved me open and then tried to stitch me shut with shaky hands. But instead, I listened. That's how this whole thing started, really. I'm a listener. I swallow my own needs and let people spill their mess into me like I'm some emotional landfill. And Leona? She's always known exactly how to take up space in my silence. So when she said, I don't know who I am without you, I didn't call it out for what it was, fear, not love. I just sat there, mug still in hand, feeling like maybe, she was finally being honest. She stood up slowly, walked over to me, and placed a hand on my shoulder like she was asking permission to exist again. I didn't pull away. I hated that I didn't pull away. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she said. I know I don't deserve it. But I can't leave like this. I need to fix what I broke. Or try. And what does that even mean? I asked. What would fixing it look like to you? She didn't answer right away. She walked to the window, pushed the curtain aside, and stared out at the dull morning sky like she was waiting for instructions from the clouds. I want to start over. Go to counseling. Relearn each other. Tear it all down and build it back together. Brick by brick. If you let me. I stared at the back of her head. The way her hair curled slightly at the ends. The curve of her spine. I used to trace it in bed, half asleep. I knew every inch of her body better than my own. And now I couldn't tell if what I felt was longing or nausea. What about Stefan? I asked. She turned around quickly. There is no Stefan. Not anymore. I ended it the night of the party. Before I came downstairs. After you kissed him. Her jaw clenched. Yes. After that. But I knew then. That it was over. That I'd gone too far. That I wanted you, not that. She paused like she was waiting for me to say something. I didn't. So she went on. I made the worst mistake of my life because I was trying to make you feel something. Anything. I didn't realize I was just breaking us both. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But part of me couldn't help thinking. If that was the worst mistake of her life, why did she wear it so confidently? Why was she still in my shirt, still in my kitchen, still sipping coffee like this was just a rough patch? I stood up. She flinched, just barely, but enough. And I realized in that moment, she didn't know what I was going to do next. For the first time in our marriage, I had all the power. And it felt awful. I need air, I said, stepping past her. And you need to not be here when I get back. Her face crumbled. Not dramatically. Not in some movie scene sob. Just quietly. Her lips trembled. Her eyes flickered. She looked smaller. Like someone who had gambled and lost everything. And still, she nodded. But just as I reached for the door, she said something that made my blood run cold. If you walk out now, the story that lives in your head will be the only one that survives. I turned slowly. What does that mean? It means, she said carefully, that I won't fight you. Not publicly. Not in court. Not with our families. But if you go, the version of me you carry, the villain, the liar, the monster, that's the only Leona that will exist to you forever. She looked me straight in the eye. And I don't want to be that woman in your mind. I closed the door behind me without answering. And for the first time since the party, I realized this story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about control. And neither of us had it anymore. I didn't go far that morning. Just down the street to the bench by the bus stop where the old man feeds pigeons. He wasn't there. Too early, maybe. Or maybe he'd finally had enough of their endless, hungry need. I sat alone, wind stinging my face. Cars rolling by like time itself didn't care what I'd just been through. And for the first time in days, I didn't think about what she did to me. I thought about what I'd let happen to myself. I'd been holding on to a version of our marriage that hadn't existed in a long time. Protecting an idea of us, not the reality. Pretending love and longevity were the same thing. They're not. You can spend years in the same space with someone and still grow into two entirely different species. But something Leona said stuck with me. If you walk out now, the story that lives in your head will be the only one that survives. And I realized Maybe I didn't want to carry a story defined entirely by pain. When I got home, the apartment was spotless. Coffee mug washed. Floor vacuumed. The envelope was gone. So was the ruined rug, and oddly, so was her cactus mug. Like she'd taken only the things that were hers, and left everything else exactly as it had been. But she hadn't left. She was sitting on the balcony, knees pulled up to her chest, wrapped in the same blue hoodie she used to wear when she had nightmares. She looked at me, not scared, not dramatic, just waiting. "I thought I told you to go," I said, not unkindly. "You did," she nodded. "And I will. But I wanted to be here when you got back. Just once. To see if there was anything left worth saving." I didn't respond. I stepped outside and sat beside her. For a long time, neither of us spoke. We just watched the city stretch awake. People rushing to jobs. Children dragging backpacks. Somewhere, a dog barked. She broke the silence. "I don't expect you to take me back. I know it doesn't work like that. I want us both to walk away from this knowing we tried everything." I looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time since the party, I didn't see the woman who betrayed me. I saw the woman who'd loved me. Imperfectly. Yes, painfully, but still loved. "I don't want to go back to what we were," I said finally. "That version of us was already gone. But maybe we can start something new. From scratch. No illusions. No lies." Her eyes widened slightly. "You mean that?" "I don't know what I mean," I admitted. "But I'm tired of endings. Let's see if we can build something better." She reached out, cautiously, and placed her hand over mine. No rings. Just skin. And this time, I didn't pull away. We didn't promise forever that morning. We didn't erase the past. We didn't pretend everything was fine. But we did one thing we hadn't done in years. We chose each other. Not out of habit. Not out of guilt. But out of the smallest, most stubborn kind of hope. The kind that grows in the cracks after everything else is broken. And sometimes, that's enough to begin again.